Hello and welcome to World of Tanks 101, and today we're going to look at the light tank class in World of Tanks. We'll try to address the class as a whole, and help you decide if the class is for you, and if so, what part. In this video, the term alpha damage is referring to the average damage caused by one penetrating shot, and the term rate of fire is the number of shots fired in 1 minute. Light tanks' main feature is their camouflage rating, and how difficult they are to spot. They are also the only tank to maintain their camouflage rating while on the move. In World of Tanks, bushes and knockdown trees are your friend. These will increase your camouflage and make you very difficult to spot, even from extremely close ranges. When using your light tank to scout, you can either sit behind the bush or in it. From in the bush, the distance you will spot other tanks is further, but you yourself are easier to spot. From behind it, you're much harder to spot, but the range at which you can spot them is reduced. Light tanks will often be the fastest turning tanks, with only a few mediums coming close in terms of track traverse, which defines how fast your tank turns. This is important for navigating obstacles at speed or taking on another tank. The agility and maneuverability of your tank will help you choose how you want to play your tank. When choosing how to play your light tank, you have two main choices as to whether you play as a passive or an aggressive scout. Your preference will help you choose which light tanks are for you. At low tiers, you will almost always have to play aggressively, pushing up to the enemy to actively spot them and to get damaging shots in. But as you progress up the tiers, you get more chance to be passive. Passive scouting is where you find a well-placed bush and you sit in it and you do not fire, but you just spot the other team, sometimes letting them get to within 100 meters of you or less, and if you've chosen your spot right, you won't be spotted. Then, at the right time, you start firing and run to cover or to circle the tank. All light tanks are fast, although they're not always the fastest, as some mediums are faster, but you can rely on a light tank not being slow. Using this speed to your advantage can help decide a battle, in both how it plays out and ultimately who wins. Use your speed to get to a position first, spot the enemy so your teammates can fire at them from safety, or maybe you find a tank on his own so you can circle him, putting shot after shot into him while he is unable to return fire. When circling, it is worth aiming for the other tank's tracks. Taking off his tracks stops him from being able to try and turn with you. Be aware of your speed. It is easy to go fast off hills or ledges and either take damage or destroy your tracks, leaving you immobilized. One of the best uses of your speed is to exploit a gap. If you see a clear gap between the spotted enemy team, then you can use it to flank them or go after artillery. It can also be used at the end of the game to mop up the last of the enemy team, as at the end of the game the remaining players are likely to be alone or on low hit points. This is where light tanks with autoloaders come into their own. The main difference in guns on light tanks is that you either have a fast-firing low-caliber gun or an auto-loading gun, with only a couple of light tanks that differ. The autoloaders have the ability to put out a large amount of damage in a very short time, but they then tend to have a long reload, which means you're unable to return fire. Although at low tier, that reload isn't that long. This large damage output in a short time allows for hit-and-run tactics, or for finishing off several tanks at the end of a game in a short time. The high rate of fire guns offer a different advantage. They have to have a quick rate of fire, but cannot output the damage that an autoloader can in such short time. But they never have to stop. Whereas an autoloader may have to wait 40 seconds to be able to fire again, fast firing guns are never more than 3 or 5 seconds away from shooting again. The difference really helps define which should be aggressive and which should be passive, although both can be used in either. Obviously though, it is easier to be aggressive when you have to wait 3 seconds to shoot again rather than 40. And finishing off a lone tank is much easier when you can do 1200 damage in 15 seconds and then run away while you reload. Another factor of light tanks is their view range. Light tanks can only be matched or beaten in their view range by medium tanks, but by having a much better camouflage rating and the right bush makes them much better at spotting. There are different ways to effectively spot a tank, and not getting yourself spotted at the same time is a big plus. This is where we go back to our friend, the bush, or fallen tree. The maps on World of Tanks are well designed to have the strategically placed bush in a great spotting position, allowing you to hide and spot for your team. Learning and finding these is something you will want to do, but sometimes you have to make your own cover. This can be done by driving into a tree and knocking it down so it becomes ground cover for you. But be aware, when you knock down a tree, the enemy team will see the tree fall, and they will now know where you are. So watch out if tanks suddenly start pointing their gun at a fallen tree, even when there's no one spotted or detected. A blind shot, as it's commonly known, where someone will fire at someone because cover is destroyed or a tree has fallen. This still remains the best way to passive scout and often allows for huge amounts of assisted damage. Alternatively, if you want to play aggressively, then ridges are your best friend. To spot, only the viewport on the top of your tank needs to see the enemy. This means that exposing millimeters of your turret will often spot people, and this is where ridges come into play. Finding a good ridge with a view over the enemy team will allow you to quickly peek over the top and spot the other team. But most ridges are obvious, so be aware of return fire of people pre-aiming into those spots. Playing aggressively like this will often allow you to spot an opening and see the chance to take down a lone tank. And also to fire hopeful shots from the ridge if your tank has the gun depression. But be careful. Light tanks have the lowest health apart from artillery. You cannot afford to take hits. Often 2 or 3 hits and all your health is gone. And some tank destroyers and heavy tanks can kill you in one shot. Quick reactions are a must when playing a light tank. If you accidentally run into a tank, you can lose all your health to ramming. But jumping on stuff often makes that worth it. As with all tanks, you must play to your strengths. In the case of light tanks, that's your speed, your agility and your camouflage. Although the guns may appear weak and stand no chance of penetrating a tank from the front, that doesn't matter when you're driving round his side, with him helplessly trying to catch up to you in a turn. That can be so satisfying and the cause of a lot of laughs. If you want to be an aggressive light tank, then check the tanks out. Not all tanks are suited, but any can be anything that you want them to be. Once you've played your tank, you know how you want to play it, but it's time for optimizations. Equipment are items you can buy and that will sit on your tank until you choose to remove them, but this can cost gold, so choose wisely. With light tanks, view range is important, so you'll want to choose either binocular or coated optics depending on your playstyle. I'd say that those are the only definitive pieces of equipment. The rest is down to you. World of Tanks has a wide variety of equipment available for each tank, and it's this variety that can make all the difference. Whether you want to make your tank more stealthy with a camouflage net, which only activates when you're still, or whether you want to use a vertical stabilizer for firing on the move. So knowing how you play, you need to choose what's best for you. Now, the most important thing, enjoy yourself. As with all gaming, World of Tanks is about having fun, whether alone or with your friends. However you want to play, the best thing is to be sure you are enjoying yourself doing it. I hope you've enjoyed and learned from this video. I look forward to seeing you in the comments of my YouTube, facing you down on the battlefield, and if I've done my job right, having a tough time on my hands. I've been Jack the Ripper, and I'll see you on the battlefield.